everyone, I'm Gray, and so far I've been learning digital art seriously since 2022, almost 3 years now. And for this video, I just wanted to give you guys a casual art talk on this topic kind of pertaining to art style, and also some mini life updates of where I'm currently and what my future goals are in terms of art. So if you look on screen, I'm basically doing a bunch of studies on poses and really focusing on making those poses feel very intentional in their design. And I think these sketches or this style is relatively simpler than what I'm used to. Normally, I would probably put more lines and details on the hair and clothes, the body, for example, and maybe indicate more of the anatomy, but this time I had a different purpose, and that is where I think style comes into play, and how lines and what your target audience is in a particular situation. I was thinking quite intentionally about the style. I remember posting the sketch version in my story, and I didn't expect so many people to love it so much. I think one reason is because I was very intentional and focused on making this appealing to a certain audience, which I think happens to include my Instagram audience. I was being very intentional about the style, to say it simply. So my sketches here actually are tied to some real life changes that I went through these past few months, and that is I actually became a graphic design major recently, which is seems to deviate a little from my more original goal, which is I really wanted to be more of an illustrator and webtoon artist, or just a comic artist. I took on this major for more future security, just for the sake of me and my family. That is one reason why I became a graphic design major, which is a little funny to think of because I feel like a lot of artists tend to take this route because that field is more accepted socially in maybe certain cultures. I'm not against it at all, and actually excited, because when you think about it, it's like you're expanding your skills to a greater degree, and it'll be cool if I could pair my illustrations with really effective branding in the future if I ever do start my own little business with my art, and I can help other creators or entrepreneurs brand their own business or products. Because I have a major also in graphic design, I also could maybe get commissions for titles, and not just for the cover illustrations of books. Having the same artist do two of the things, the title and the cover, I think will maybe make the whole book cover more synchronous and unified. So I think it's a pretty beneficial major in my opinion. All that is to kind of say is graphic design was on my mind when I was going into these sketches. One of the things I've learned is a lot on the subject of design, and some of you might have heard about rhythm, patterns, shapes, lines, and how that comes to play in design and making appealing design. So I think even if you're not doing something like graphic design, it's very helpful to learn how repeating certain shapes and creating some kind of rhythm with those lines can really elevate your art style. So these poses are based on reference. Honestly, these sketches were also because I wanted to take up daily sketching again, or at least sketch most of the days every week, and not put too much pressure on myself in creating a full-on illustration that will take me 50 hours. I probably briefly answered this question, but I think it's beneficial for every artist out there to kind of think about how design is affecting their art style and their artwork. Like, how do lines and limits affect your art style? Are your lines more rounded and curvy like mine, or do you prefer sharp and angular lines? Those by themselves also tell a story and communicate a certain feeling to your audience, right? Depending on who your target audience is, you can make those lines and shapes more complicated or more simplified. So all these options that you can take in how you sketch and how you design your work can really define what your art style looks like to you and to others. Do your favorite artists have specific shapes, even if they're not that obvious? Do they gravitate for more curvy shapes like circular shapes in their work, or sharp rectangular shapes or triangular forms in their work? I think catching those aspects in your top artist's work is also kind of interesting to consider. I'm still a learning artist. I'm definitely not a professional. I just want to share this with you guys and give you guys a moment to think about how this might affect your art style, and hopefully it will make it easier for you to find your art style. So, actually, I also wanted to say, even more specifically, there was an assignment I had in one of my classes where each of the student was to design a call to action poster. And what I mean is that we each would design a poster that intentionally tries to persuade the audience or fire up the audience to do a certain action. So in my case, I wanted my audience to hydrate. Just from that, I know that I wanted to include a lot of elements that remind people of water. So I'm definitely not going to choose more sharp angles, but I'm going to choose a lot of round shapes. But I think the even more defining way of how I chose an art style for that poster was the target audience. And that is what I mean by how limits can affect your art style, right? Is your audience 20-year-olds from a certain culture? Is your target audience professionals that are looking to hire people in the animation industry? I decided my target audience was high schoolers because I think the stuff I like to draw before is more curated to young people. I don't think middle-aged people would as much appreciate in general a more anime art style in the Western world. But who knows? I'm not sure. You guys can let me know. But I think my previous works definitely gravitate towards this age group or around this age group. I was thinking quite a lot about the design aspect and style aspect and how that affected everything and how my audience affected that, as well as my own personal preferences. So all these mixtures, it was fun to think about how I'm communicating things to a certain group of people. I know high school students probably, and more specifically, I mean in a certain area of the US where the culture is very big on the 9-to-5 job life, and I think I'm very studious culture relatively. So I'm guessing a lot of high school students in this area is worried about what college they're getting into, taking AP classes, taking the SAT. With all that focus on their studies, I think just a simple message to hydrate is beneficial to their health, and they're also going through puberty, so I would think that making sure they maintain healthy habits at a young age is essential for their growth. And water or any hydrating drink definitely helps your cognitive functions too. So I thought hydration is a very suitable subject for me to make this poster for high school students. About becoming a graphic design major, one interesting thing is, if you can't tell already, I'm a major homebody and am pretty introverted. So imagine being holed up in your house for so long, especially because of COVID, just doing your thing, drawing seriously, learning your art by yourself seriously, and then you're used to being a self-taught artist, relatively speaking, and then you go to an art program, and then you meet people in person. Suddenly, there's all these art students around you. It was an interesting and kind of overwhelming feeling. Like, it was like a mini culture shock for me, because when you're learning at home by yourself, I know there's like Discord where you can meet a lot of people that are interested in the same things as you, but then you go in person and then you see real humans, full body, legit humans, just like a feet away from you in real life who love art too. It's like, whoa. Like, you guys were just profiles on a screen before, but now you're like a full human. As a former, relatively more isolated artist, it was kind of a shock to me, and it got me kind of excited to be surrounded by this kind of culture. But if I had to choose, I would stay at home. That is currently where I am right now. Things like illustrations might be a little more slow. I'm not sure if I'll be able to post as much stuff as I want to in the near future. But I hope these sketches helped create a better habit of me just grinding out some sketches every day, and hopefully that will help me keep posting consistently, and create consistently good work. I don't plan to give up on my personal art goals anytime soon, because art is kind of a big portion of self-expression for me, and it became quite an important aspect of my life. It's something that keeps me going. So definitely, art is not everything. It's always good to touch grass, people. Kind of saying that to myself too. I think I can go back and talk more about style. Oh, I forgot to mention that one major influence I was looking at that kind of triggered me to go this direction for these sketches in terms of style is a specific artist. I think they're Japanese, and I'm not sure what their real name is. Maybe Junro? But their Twitter or X handle is TJNRQ, capital Q. Their art style really is deceptively simple. I probably will show some pictures from them on screen. Like, their shapes and lines are super clean, and they don't indicate too much of the anatomy. They keep it real simple in terms of that, but you can feel how 3D a figure is, and like there's a major emphasis on round shapes, and that caught me. And how intentional each of their lines, or almost all of their lines, were. You know how some artists, when you see their work, when you come across it on Pinterest or Instagram or somewhere else, sometimes an artist's work can just make your heart kind of, suddenly you get high. Suddenly you get kind of high from seeing their work. You know what I mean? Some artists, there's these moments where a person's artwork incredibly resonates with you, and then you can't help but be like, this is so peak, this is epic. It's like you're receiving some kind of revelation from their work or heavy inspiration. So I was looking at their artwork. I was like, this is genius. So I was definitely transferring some of the elements I liked from their work into my own, into these sketches. So maximalism is not always the option, and simple does not always mean boring. By no means, when you look at their work, does it scream boring. Even if they keep it super simple, deceptively simple, I would say. It's not that simple, but it's simple in its expression. I think if you look at their work, you know what I mean. So I don't think the sketches that you see me work on today is like the be all and all. I actually saw a different portrayal of style on Pinterest, which I want to share with you all. If you look on screen at this moment, is how you can go from semi-realistic to chibi style, for example. And I think that is a really interesting way to think about art style and how you can be flexible in your own realm of style and design. So based on that picture I just showed you, I think the sketches on screen is a more simplified version of my own art style that I want to explore. But that does not mean that I will rigidly keep my style like this. There are definitely ways, or a way that I think I can make these sketches even more complex, but still maintain the same overall silhouette and shapes. Like, if you saw some of my webtoon drawings, or maybe OC that I've made before, I definitely put more details and lines. Please let me know if I'm wrong, but based on my works before compared to these sketches, I think they still fall in the same realm of my art style because they maintain similar lines and shapes. You guys probably know, but I use a lot of rounded circular shapes, and that is like a dominant aspect of my work. It's something that I naturally kind of deviate towards when I'm sketching, and maybe your brushes also might affect this, but it just feels more comfortable for me to make rounded lines compared to sharp and angular lines that you might see other artists do. So what I want to say is, I think art style can be flexible. You can have a quote-unquote simple version of your art style, but it doesn't mean that more complex or even more simple art styles are out of bounds. If there is a few or a couple things that you keep consistent, maybe it's your shapes, maybe it's your colors, maybe it's your values. If there are a couple things that stay synchronous throughout all your work, I think hopefully they can still recognize it's your art. This is kind of just a hypothesis from me. I'm not sure if you guys can see that these drawings are from me, no matter how simple or complex I make a piece of work, but hopefully you guys see it. Let me know in the comments too. I would love to know. And I would love to know what your thoughts are on art style. Hey, if you know any cool artists that uses really cool round shapes, please let me know. I would love to see and get even more inspired. Anyway, thank you guys for watching or listening, and I hope everyone has a great day. Happy drawing, everyone. Bye!
you.